Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Tina. I'm the Capability Building Coordinator for Connecting Up and TechSoup New Zealand. Connecting Up is a part of the Info Exchange Group. Info Exchange is a not-for-profit social enterprise that has delivered technology for social justice for over 25 years. With over 100 staff across Australia and New Zealand, we tackle the biggest social challenges through the smart and creative use of technology. I'd like to welcome you all to the webinar, Maximising Your Use of Office 365, which will be presented by Marcus Harvey and James O'Callaghan from Info Exchange. We'll start with a little bit of housekeeping. All lines are muted, so if you have any technical issues, please type it into the questions box on your webinar panel and I'll be able to assist you through there. If you have any questions during the session, please also type it into the questions box and Marcus and James will answer them in the Q&A section at the end of the webinar. Please note that your comments and questions will not appear to the entire group. If you are on a Wi-Fi connection and have multiple programs open, this can sometimes affect the quality of the audio and video of the webinar. If possible, please close all other programs to help you have the best experience. Please note that the webinar is being recorded and a link to the recording and the slides will be sent to you shortly after the webinar ends. Before we start, I'd also like to remind you that there will be a short survey at the end of the webinar. We'd appreciate it if you took a few minutes to provide us with some feedback. That's all from me for now. I'll pass it over to Marcus and James to get things started. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Tina, and welcome everyone. It's really great to have you online and learning how to maximize your use of Office 365. I think one of the great things about Office 365 is it has so many different options that allows you to get a whole lot of value. I'm just going to say a quick hello, just so you can all see my face, and then I will turn off the webcam until the end. But we love Office 365 because of all those different options and because there is so much you can do to get value out of it without paying additional cost for software. So what I'm planning to do is talk through the main options, talk about how we see other organizations doing it, and then talk about some of the things that we see nonprofits really get excited about and go, I want to get more out of it without spending a whole lot of money. What are my key next steps? So we'll talk through that. From a starting perspective, what I'd like to do is just talk through, first of all, the main components of Office 365. And you should see that on your screen now on slide 2. So from a component perspective, the core non-profit selections consist of the 3 core boxes you see on your screen. There's Business Essentials and E1. That's a free donation license to eligible nonprofits, and that's limited to 2,000 users. So if you've got more than 2,000 users, you've got to pick one of the other options. You can mix and match between the options. So you can get up to 2,000 users of Business Essentials or E1, and you can then get one license for Business Premium or Enterprise. So you can mix and match across these as much as your heart's content. You can do 20 Business Essentials, 2 Business Premium, and 10 E3 licenses. There's no limit to the mixing and matching. In the old days, you didn't used to have that flexibility, but these days Microsoft have opened it up a whole lot more, and you can now mix and match to your heart's content. So as I was mentioning earlier, Business Essentials and E1 is limited to 2,000 users. It excludes the Office desktop applications. And so organizations that pick the E1 or Business Essentials, we find or we recommend get Office through Connecting Up or TechSoup New Zealand if you're in New Zealand. That's for around about 43 Australian dollars, a little bit more in New Zealand dollars for Office Standard through the Connecting Up program, volume licensing nonprofit program, and then you can install that on those users that need it. We do find a number of organizations, particularly for caseworkers that are out in the field the majority of the time, if you have a good client and case management app, pick E1, and they don't always need Office as well, particularly if they're using a mobile phone or a tablet to enter case notes in time when they're out with clients. In that case, you may not need to buy Office, and you may be able to get away with the online versions of Office if you need it. Now, the great thing about Business Essentials and E1 is that it comes with a whole lot of back-end options as well, or services. It comes with Exchange, so no longer do you need an Exchange server. It comes with a terabyte of OneDrive storage for every one of those up to 2,000 users. So that gives you an absolute mountain of storage for all your staff. It comes with SharePoint, so you can share files and information, you can build workflows, etc. It comes for Skype for Business for those that are on the older tenants, and it comes with Teams for those that are on the newer tenants. That gives you video conferencing, collaboration, chat, etc. And I'll show you Teams a little bit more in this webinar, just so you can get your head around it and your concept. And so that really allows organizations to get the core, and that's what you should start with. Maximize your use out of those services, particularly because once you've done that, you can then go to the next level. The other things worth mentioning, if you're in a larger organization, using Yammer is really useful. When I say larger, I mean dispersed geographically, or more than 100 staff. And I'll talk a little bit more about Planner this afternoon. The difference with Business Premium is that you get the Office desktop apps as well. So that's $4.10 per user per month, limited to about 300 users. But that's nice in that you can, those applications are automatically updated, and you get them available on your desktop, and every user can install them on up to 5 devices. So that might be PCs, that might be tablets, that might be phone, etc. And so I will often use, but not for a long time because it's a small screen. I can open up Excel spreadsheets on my phone, edit them, and then email them back to people, and that works really well. So long as it's quick and easy. The small screen size does limit me a little bit with phones. We do find it organizations that are more sophisticated and want greater functionality in their reporting and analytics, and information management and information protection are considering the E3 license, $6.10 per user per month. And that gives you a range of additional services. So it gives you everything in Business Premium and Business Essentials, e.g. it gives you all the Office applications, it gives you Exchange, it gives you SharePoint, it gives you OneDrive, but it adds in some more sophisticated information rights protection, some more sophisticated compliance solution to support discovery, archiving, legal hold, etc. on emails, so that you can store a copy of what's happened within mailboxes into the future. And it also gives you some more sophisticated meeting and broadcast facilities. So as I was mentioning, the key information about E3 is that it does give you that extra information around desktop licensing, mobile apps, the advanced email business intelligence, and the e-discovery center for compliance and legal hold. And so it's worth considering. It depends whether you're price conscious or you need that more advanced functionality that comes out of E3. But moving beyond the core options, and this is some of the things I want to talk a little bit more about today, is there's a range of applications. You get Flow out of the box for all your staff at no additional cost. Now, the lovely thing about Flow is that it allows you to create workflows between applications and files. So Flow Basic is zero cost, it's available, you can link it and start to create workflows at no additional cost. If you want to do more sophisticated workflows with automated polling, etc., that's when you need to look at the Flow premium services. But the nice thing about Office 365 is it lets you get going and explore the functionality with each of these options at no cost, so you can decide whether or not you need the advanced options. Um, Forms, I'll show you quickly in this webinar. Forms allows you to create surveys, quizzes, polls. If you use Survey Monkey or something like that, you'll be familiar with that. It allows you a really easy integrated solution to produce those basic forms and polls. Planner is fantastic for organizing what needs to be done. And if you're an organization that runs simple projects and assigns tasks across your organization, often what that will allow you to do is manage progress of those tasks really effectively. Power Apps, fantastic to build and expose. Um, Forms and data capture on mobile phones or for exposure through web apps. And that's all about, can I create something simple and then allow my staff to access it using a Power app on your phone? The nice thing about Power Apps, it is really simple to get going with. And then you can link that to a SharePoint list or to a flow to automate solutions. So we've worked with organizations that have created a Power App to create a simple intake process or a simple referral process. Again, not complex, really simple, but it just starts moving away from paper forms. Obviously, if you have a CMS, client case management system, that should be a choice for intake processes. But for those that haven't yet moved that and just want something simple, it's really useful. Stream for sharing videos of classes, presentations, etc. And videos, the more you want to actually share videos, Stream's a really good option. Used to be called 365 Video. They've transformed that over the last 6 months or so. Yammer mentioned in the last slide to connect people from across the organization together. It's really very much like an organizational Facebook is where we see organizations getting real value out of it. And for us, that's really useful because it brings social into the organization. It doesn't just force you, or it starts to encourage collaboration and engagement outside of work as well. Power BI Pro, I'll do a really quick demo of that today as well, just to start to whet your appetite, to start to create and share dashboards to help you understand your organization, to help you understand your activities, and to create some key dashboards around how do you understand potentially your core KPIs or service delivery requirements for your funders, etc. So really easy way of getting a shared dashboard with the ability to easily analyze and understand it. There's a range of additional services that we think all organizations need to consider. First option is EMS or Enterprise Mobility and Security E3. The great thing is that all non-profits get 50 free EMS E3 licenses. So everyone gets, every non-profit you can buy for $0, 50 Enterprise Mobility and Security E3 licenses at zero cost. It's only when you go to 51, it's $3.40 per user per month. That gives you a range of additional options. It gives you Intune for mobile device management. It gives you Azure AD for a whole lot more sophisticated reporting in your Azure environment. It gives you multi-factor authentication options for whitelisting and for geo-blocking. It also gives you information protection, so reporting as to who's accessing your information from what country, etc. So our recommendation is that everyone that's not purchased the zero cost 50 free EMS E3 licenses, and I'll cover this in a slide towards the end as well. When I'm talking about security, please purchase those, get a handle on what it offers. It's really valuable, particularly within the cloud environment, to better protect your information and your security. EMS E5, that's more expensive. It's got some really lovely preventative analytics. and really smart controls around where your attacks are coming from, potential attacks and real attacks into your environment, and warning you about who you actually need to work with so that you can educate them to better protect them, or you can turn on additional controls to protect your organization from remote attacks. Office 365 E5 gives you all the E3 plus advanced security analytics and voice capabilities. Quite a number of the organizations will go down an Office 365 E5 license that we've seen, particularly for the voice dial-in video conferencing, just so you've got those extra options as well. And so there's some of the extra things I'm not going to talk about, but you've also got all the standard versions of Project, Visio, all the normal Microsoft applications are available as well. So they're the core. I'm going to cover a few of those, Forms, Planner, and Power BI in a couple of demos shortly, as well as Teams. But before I do that, I do want to talk a little bit about information and collaboration, because one of the challenges with Office 365 is that there are many options for sharing information. And that's good because you can pick the one that best works for you. But that can be bad because if you turn everything on or encourage everyone to use everything, it's really easy for staff to get confused. And once they start to get confused, they will start not to understand where to save information, how to collaborate effectively, and where to store things in the right place. And so what I've said here is you need to design your environment so it's intuitive for staff, so it's obvious without them having to refer to some document how they should work, and it aligns with their preferred work styles. Now, what I mean by that is, I'll cover in 2 slides, but different people like to work in different ways. And the challenge for us using Office 365, as you can see on this slide 6, is that there's a whole lot of ways of sharing information. If you just start to use everything without any guidance, staff will start to struggle with, do I share information on Yammer, on SharePoint, in Microsoft Teams, on a team site, in a 365 group? Should I save the file in my OneDrive and then share it? Or do I just give up and email files to everyone with Outlook? And from our perspective, that's a really bad outcome because everyone will start doing everything differently, and eventually people start reverting back to Outlook or OneDrive, which is not a natural group collaboration tool. It's a one-to-one collaboration tool, and particularly good for outside the organization as well. So the reason we showed this is it helps people conceptualize what the different tools are good for in different situations. If your time sensitivity is high, it's usually an instant message or a broadcast or a video conference, right? And so that's what you can see across the top there. If the time sensitivity is low and it's more formal rather than I'll start with, and it's more informal and it's team-based, not organizational-based, that's when Microsoft Teams comes in. So depending on whether the audience is individual, group, team, department, or organization, depending on the time sensitivity and how formal versus informal it is, that very much selects what you should use or guides you towards what you should use. As I mentioned earlier, if you can, don't use everything. So, because staff will start to get confused, and turn things on over a time period so the organization can get used to different mechanisms. So for instance, what we'll often do is we'll work with organizations with Teams, and we'll help them make the most of Microsoft Teams so that they can video conference, instant message, and uh, share files within their teams, and we'll connect that back to a SharePoint site for more permanent storage. Um, and that will get them up and operational and familiar, and that's a fairly closed environment that we can then start to extend. And now if you want to start to use OneDrive for your individual files, that's where you should be using it there. If you're not a large organization, let's not worry about Yammer. But helping organizations and individuals understand what they should be using is absolutely critical to getting the most, maximizing your use out of Office 365 and maximizing the value you get out of the things you do use. When you're selecting something to use, we find this is a really useful, the generational preferences is a really useful diagram to talk through. Now, organizations that have predominantly baby boomers, just to pick the one on the left-hand side, they will prefer email and in-person meetings, right? So let's not go, if you're trying to transform to an online environment and a digital native, let's not immediately start with persistent chat and enterprise social networking, because while there are some baby boomers that love it, there's a whole lot more that it's not natural to them. All right, so let's start with something that they're used to, and then maybe introduce them to instant messaging and team workspaces. After that, then let's start to explore, do we need to go further? If you're an organization that largely has Gen Zs, then let's not worry about email so much. It's obviously still going to be there, but let's push persistent chat. Let's push enterprise social networking, conversational user interfaces within Teams, and online video conferencing. And bang, off you go. And that's the initial push. Now, often people come back to me and say, well, yeah, but Marcus, I've got a bit of everyone. I've got baby boomers, I've got my Gen Xers, I've got my millennials, and I've got my Gen Zs. And I go, I didn't say life was meant to be easy, and that's very much where you need to think about what's most important to your organization and how do you manage the change process so you embed the behaviors that you want. Don't try the hardest thing that delivers no value first. Pick some easy wins, right? If you've got a large group of millennials that have a desperate need for video conferencing because you've got a lot of remote sites and travel time's a problem, and everyone says that there's a challenge with meetings because you can't read facial expressions because they're all telephone based, then maybe that's where you start. All right, start with what delivers value but is not actually too difficult and move forward from that. So it's worth thinking about. Don't turn everything on. Think about your organization. Think about what people are comfortable with and build on top of that. That's our number one piece of advice from a change management and an adoption strategy perspective. Use the right tool for the right job. Don't overwhelm staff. That's sort of tip number one. Tip number two, reduce email. So try and give people options that stop them collaborating via email, because that just proliferates the inbox problem. It also proliferates, if you use email with attachments, the problem of everyone's got their own version of the truth and no one's got the latest version of the file, and then starts to cause those problems. The more that you can use shared collaboration storage, whether that's Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, etc., it really gives you that one version of the facts that everyone can access. But make sure your information architecture is documented. Make sure it's clear for staff, particularly when they join the organization. Where should I store a file? Where should I look for a file? How can I find what I need? It also needs to be intuitive, right? People shouldn't have to refer back to something. You should be able to naturally navigate and find what they need. So that intuitiveness is critical when we're designing an information architecture for organizations, and it needs to be designed around existing org structure and existing business priorities. OneDrive for personal files, Teams for collaboration, SharePoint as a more permanent information store. There's some of the principles that we start with. Do you need file shares? If you don't, try and get rid of them. Move completely to SharePoint, Teams and OneDrive. If you do need file shares, consider that, but be really clear what they're used for. Or don't use SharePoint, just use file shares. But that obviously has some challenges around collaboration and around working offline, and around everyone accessing a document at the same time. But come back to the principle of ensure that your information architecture is documented. It's owned by key staff, so there's responsibility for aligning with it. The finance area is managed by the CFO or the CFO's EA, and this is the broad structure, and there's someone there that's not IT whose job it is to keep an eye on that, or to answer questions and help people understand it. The same with service delivery or best practice around casework. Make sure that they've got an area, it's within the documented information architecture, and it's intuitive for that group of people to find what they want. The key features we love: collaborative authoring, so that everyone can get in a file at once and actually work on it together. Working anywhere with file synchronization, so you can work offline. OneNote, not talking actually a lot about OneNote, but we do love OneNote. It's really, really useful around just a quick notes for teams and for others, and also workflow automation with Power Apps, SharePoint, and Flow. So the more that you can automate your volume processes and give structure to it and eliminate those paper forms and paper workflows or emails that then don't create that, the better off your organization will be. I do want to talk a little bit about teams, and I'll create a team in a second for you, because for us, Teams is a really useful interface that brings together, as you can see on the right-hand side, key elements: instant messaging, group chat, file shares, tasks, calendar. It's replaced Skype for all new tenants. It's an excellent collaboration solution for project groups, teams, and small clients. So, when we've got a small organization that we work with, we'll often look at Teams as the best and most intuitive solution for sharing information. I will say, particularly if you're moving off an old environment, which you had a file share in a server, please look at your internet connection. Things don't work well on the cloud if you don't have a decent connection. And as you would have seen, I'm using a headset for audio just because open plan offices and speakers microphones do not work well. But so think through that. If you were one of those organizations that have been using Skype, and you've gone, no, Skype is just not quite working for me. I really like Zoom, and I've purchased Zoom now, and or I'm trialing Zoom. Give Teams a go. What we've found is that Teams is a really intuitive interface for video conferencing, and it's very much, we've seen organizations move off Zoom back onto Teams simply because of the price difference. Teams is part of Office 365, but I do want to just quickly run up a team and show you. So I'm just going to close that down. Sorry about my email. And let's run up Teams. So I'm just going to quickly create a new team, just so that you can see what exists. I am going to create a private team just because it's a very important team where we share stuff that's really important to me and to all the people I want to share with. So what happens in the back end is this is now talking to Office 365 and creating the team. And this is really for those people that I want to share with. This will give them the core interface and give them an ability to interact with me. Now, I've got a really good friend who's got a lot of fantastic skill and experience. So I'm going to invite James. Yeah, and you can see there's a nice photo of James. There's all his contact details, etc. And I'm going to say James and I are going to work on the team, and we want to collaborate effectively. And that's sort of one of the nice thing about Teams is you can collaborate effectively with those people that you want to, or you can make it a public group, which allows anyone to collaborate effectively. And Teams really gives you the ability to video conference, to chat, to keep the messaging within your team and to have a searchable history, as well as it gives you the ability to share files. So here you are. I'm in Marcus's team, and what that allows is, and because you can see here, I've got a file storage area. It's just being set up. It'll take a minute or so. We can see some conversations. Welcome everyone. Oh, there you go. James is already on there. We're starting that persistent chat. But I am, to be really honest, a bit of a OneNote fan. And let's see if it might be running a little bit slow today. So we'll start that in a second as it's still doing the setup process. But what it allows you to do is add some additional, we're going to add some channels first of all, because what Teams does is it groups information into different channels. So I'm going to have a channel on best practice, NFP, collaborate tech, and I am also going to add a channel that is for non-profit information management. And so what that allows you to do is all the chat and the files and everything, it goes into a channel, all right? And so it allows you to coordinate your information. Everyone can put it in general if they want, like the welcome and all that sort of stuff, or it allows you to actually store stuff in a channel so people can find things. Now, what I'm going to do is actually create a new OneNote notebook, Team NFP Tech, because I am actually quite a big fan of OneNote. And OneNote, if you haven't used it, it's a great tool for storing information within your organization, but in a structured fashion that's not a file store. So if you haven't tried OneNote, I'll give it a crack because it's really nice. The other thing I do want to add is Planner. So I'll just add that now, so it just takes a little bit of time to chug away in the back end. I'm going to create a new plan. And the nice thing about Planner is that I can start to assign tasks and manage tasks. Review best practice NFP tech, and I'm going to assign it to my friend James, and I'm going to set a due date of tomorrow because it's really important. And there you can start within the team to start to see what there is. It also has some, you can put things in what's called buckets. So you can create different bucket types for different task types to start to create, categorize things. It also gives you all the standard charts of across the team, across all the tasks within Planner, what's not started, what's started. You can also see a schedule view to understand, what's due in which months or weeks, and start to understand what's still to be done. You can group things by bucket. So Planner is a really nice way of, oh my God, James is so fast, he's already done it, is a really nice way of organizing activity or managing projects for project teams that aren't deeply sophisticated with a lot of review info management standards, without a lot of detail within it. You can also, as you can see here, you can give different labels to tasks, etc. But if you haven't played with Planner, it's a really nice way of managing those comparatively simple projects. For detailed tasks scheduling, resource scheduling, dependency management, you'd still need Microsoft Project, but 80 to 90% of nonprofit projects we see are generally used within, it can be managed generally within a Planner environment rather than going all the way. So this is OneNote. For those that haven't played with OneNote, we strongly recommend it. I prefer OneNote online just because I'm old-fashioned. I'm not always a web person. And you can see here, it's opening up the OneNote. It'll just take a little bit to sync and create. So you can create some sections, which is new Marcus's team section. And then you can start to add some pages, information sharing. And off we go. And James and everyone else has access to that within the team structure. So all of a sudden within Teams, we have some conversations. We've got the files. I haven't added any yet, but that's relatively easy to do. We've got, we can open up the SharePoint link. We've got a wiki page. We've got my OneNote to share information, and we've got a team plan. And all of a sudden, I've got the core of what I need to be able to organize my team. And to manage my team, whether that's a team as an org structure unit, or whether that's a project team that is live for a period of time and then stops, and all the information for that project can then be archived as part of the team. So that's Microsoft Teams, and a little bit of Planner as well. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I did really quickly now want to show you forms, because that's another thing that people haven't, if you're going to extend and maximize your use of Office 365, that you can see. Forms is very much just an easy IT non. So I'm just going to start. Forms is essentially create some forms, capture some information, share it with others, analyze it. That's what it allows you to do. It could be surveys, it could be anything that you want to capture. So for instance, if I start to do IT non-IT status, survey, and I will add a new choice. How satisfied are you with IT? And it's smart enough to know I'm going to add those default. And all of a sudden I'm starting to get, and those of you that are familiar with SurveyMonkey and things like that, you can actually, see that it works very simply. You can then add you can add points in, you can say I want to enable multi-answers, you can say it's required, and then off you go. Let's add a text question. Why is this the case? All right, and off you go, except I can't type because I'm trying to do it too quickly. And off you go. Again, very much like, but it's an easy, simple tool within the Office 365 environment. You can then share that. So with whoever you want, send it off, and you can start to see, the different answers. If you want to see a preview, this is what people who are filling in the survey see, whether it be on the computer or on the mobile phone style screen, so it is responsive, which is really nice. And bang, off you go. 30 seconds, create a survey, get a link to share it, go back to get the link, and you can either embed it, you can email the link, you can get a link and then put it in wherever you want. So really nice way of sharing, and you can manage security as well. So Forms is a rarely used tool because it is comparatively new within Office 365. You can link the Forms back end to save information into SharePoint lists, etc. So there is quite a bit of strong functionality there. That was all I wanted to show on Forms because I'm looking at the time and thinking I now want to just jump across to Office 365. Let me just kill that. No, sorry, let me just go back to Power BI, because one of the challenges, I'll go through this fairly quickly, is most organisations don't have good information at their fingertips. We did a survey with Connecting Up last year, and the responses were 50% of organisations reported their systems aren't capable of capturing good information about client outcomes. Similar amount said they can't easily get the information reports that they require to inform planning, improvement, and reporting, and they don't understand how outcomes. So if you're struggling with this, Power BI is often part of the solution. A little bit of theory before I jump into a demo. The key components, there's a whole lot of data sources, and it's got, Power BI has connectors into those data sources, whether it be Access, Excel. I'm just going to show you a simple Excel spreadsheet today, SQL, Postgres, you know, there's more than 80 different connectors. You then use Power BI to connect and arrange. You create a dashboard, and that dashboard you share with people within your organization. The same as within Excel, you get a whole lot of inbuilt different widgets that allows you to share that information in a way that's meaningful. Pie charts, line graph, histograms, etc. Power BI is free. You can get going with Power BI free. All right, so it's non-profit pricing at zero cost. More sophisticated sharing, access control, etc. Often organisations will invest for 10 per user per month, but you can at least explore to work out whether or not it's worthwhile. Quick note, the demo I'm about to do uses dummy data, so don't worry about it. We're doing some analysis of specialist housing outcome data. This is the Excel spreadsheet. That's in one of the examples I'll show. So it's simple. You know, some organizations we work with still capture or have some of their case data in Excel. So if that's your case, this still works. You don't always need a client and case management system. Tina, I'm just going to double check. You can still see my desktop.
Yep, I can still see it.
Fantastic. And so what I'm just going to do is get some data. I'm going to pick an Excel. I'm going to connect in. Just to pick it simple, I'm going to do a demographics data. And so you can see here, this is the Excel sheet with the data, contact time, travel time, year of arrival, person ID, name, etc. Dummy data, don't worry about what I'm showing you. And so the nice thing is that you can see the Excel. This is what it's actually going to load. So let's say we want to load it up. Give it half a second, maybe 3, because it's I'm doing a webinar, so everything takes longer in the webinar. And you can see there are the columns that we just loaded in a second ago. Now, I'm going to say I want to understand a little bit more about my data set. So let's have a look at, for instance, age range, if I can find that, and person ID down here, and I want to change, and bang, there's a nice simple graph already that we're starting to build. And let's start to look at doing some analysis. So filtering just for females or just for males, etc. And you can see already that we've started to build um, some analysis capability really simply. All right, if I want to add another, this is a longer one, more options in terms of if I want to say, what about those that are culturally and linguistically diverse, you can then add that in. So all of a sudden we're starting to get filters, we're starting to give people the information that allows them to analyze their data. I will add in, I'll just show you one that took more than 30 seconds to build. Just so you can start to get a feel as to what's possible. This one took an hour and a half to build, and that was because we were linking three or four separate data sets. So what you'll see here is we've got the demographics data that we were playing with before, but we've put it in a slightly different view, so we can now filter by country of birth, we can filter by Indigenous status, we can filter by locality. So if we just want to, for instance, look at everyone in Australia, bang, it all resets, right? And you can see counts of client numbers, etc. And so the nice thing is you can start to see what we've done, and I'll show you the data structure very quickly. So you can see this in demographics data, we've got support activity, and we've got some outcome data, right? And those are linked to actually allow us to produce that. And you can see here we've got more information about outcome feedback. So again, useful for giving the organisation a concept as to what happens and to what how things change for your organisation and for the clients you service. So you can see here we've got how is my managing tenancy and accommodation, my meaningful use of time, changing for my client across time. And so we can see there's an initial assessment, there's a first review, there's a second review and a third review, and then the ongoing review. And so this is how it changes over time. And also you can then start to filter that by gender, by age range, by Indigenous status, by support period. So you can start to look at certain time periods, or by support worker if we're interested just in how Ray's gone, for instance. So it's very simple. This didn't take a long time. This took, as I said, about 90 minutes to pull together, but it allows you to actually use the data within your organization and share it so people have a really useful vehicle for understanding the outcomes and the activities and the workloads for different workers. The key is your data needs to be accessible. That's the key. If your data is not accessible, if it's locked within a client and case management system, hopefully you can get it out in an Excel spreadsheet and then run the analysis this way. So that's the key thing. I just wanted to give you a quick demo on Power BI. I want to spend 3 minutes, which is not going to give it justice, but I do want to just mention it because one of the key things for us is data breaches are on the rise. And for our perspective, the number one entry point into a non-profit organisation today, and it's actually no different in the commercial sector, is phishing emails. 2 years ago, it was virus attachments, right? So the phishing emails are becoming a big problem for many organisations. So our recommendation is designed for security from day one. Use that EMS E3 license that I spoke about earlier, right? Consider Intune for mobile device management if you are storing sensitive data on mobile devices. Enable multi-factor authentication. Again, you get more options. You can enable it out of the box, but you get more options around geo-blocking and around whitelisting with the EMS E3 licenses. And you get much better risk-based reporting. So with an EMS E3 license, you can see the top user risks in terms of where potential breaches are coming from. You can limit logins to overseas so that anyone without MFA, so that you require MFA to log in from overseas, etc. And make sure you think about your security culture. These are non-technical, but this was the number one point. Do staff understand how to spot phishing email? Do your staff have strong complex passwords? Do staff understand how they should use technology to keep your information safe? If they don't, that's not an Office 365 thing, but that's your number one priority. Once they've got that, or in parallel with that, then use the EMS E3 and other components of Office 365, as well as controlling your onboarding and offboarding and administrative accounts. That's the key points I wanted to cover on security. Tina, I'm going to hand back to you because I wanted to give us 10 minutes just in case there were questions.
We do have a question that has come through. Do people outside the organization require Office 365 before they can join a team?
No, they don't. So people outside of the organization can join a team. They can use, so you can use the same functionality. You do need to enable that by default because they do try to, that's just a security information management thing, just to make sure that you're not sharing information willy-nilly with everyone. But no, they do not need an Office 365 Teams license.
Great. There have been no other questions that have come through. So was there anything that you wanted to add, Marcus or James?
From my perspective, look, I think that the key thing for us is Office 365 has a mountain of options and features. And so it's really important that you make the most of it, but do one or two things, no more than two, preferably just one thing at a time. Support your organization through the change journey. As they're comfortable with each key element, then make sure that you use the next element and get value out of the next key thing. For me, that's the key, and making sure that you get that value. James, did you want to add anything extra?
Look, no, nothing really to add at this stage. No, I think you've covered most things. So
Thanks, Tina.
Great. Thanks very
thanks,
much,
everyone.
Marcus. Thanks, James, for presenting today as well. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. I hope you've all learnt a lot from this presentation. And if you have any questions that do come to mind later on, or any feedback at all about the webinar, please send that through to events@connectingup.org, and we will answer those questions offline. You can also contact Marcus and James directly via the information on your screen. Don't forget that the recording will be available on the website very shortly, and a link will be sent to you, so keep an eye out on your inbox. Again, thank you for being with us. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you all next time. Thanks, Marcus. Thanks, James.